Good evening and welcome to the Selectmen's meeting of Monday, June 3rd, 2019. Just quickly, on the agenda, we had an executive session that was planned. Unfortunately, it was posted wrong, so that was canceled, so that's not happening tonight. And at 6:30, we're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a special town meeting that's being called on June 26th. We'll open and close the warrant today in one day, insert an article, then we'll make an article recommendation. We will hear from the Park and Rec, possibly the school committee, and we can talk about that in a minute. But now the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And first, it's my honor and the honor of the town and the board to introduce our new town administrator, Nina Nazarian. Nina?
Thank you very much, Joe. I'm delighted to be here, and I'm happy to see all your faces this evening. And it doesn't feel like evening because it's so nice out, and hopefully everyone at home is enjoying the weather to some extent. But thank you very much. It's an honor to be here, and it's an honor to serve the town of Littleton. Thank you to you all as well. Thanks.
And I want to say a thank you to Anthony for all the work he did in the meantime. It was supposed to be a short period of time, and ended up being 3/4 of a year. We have an article. It was a private petition that was done entirely in the correct manner. 200 signatures were signed. It has to do with the rental and the use of town land. We asked the petitioner, Liz Aramento, if she would want to make a presentation. From what I understand, that was declined. The only comment I want to make before, and I am going to turn over to the Park and Rec right away so we can make a presentation, is that as far as the article goes, we just got through a town meeting in May. We have another one coming up in the fall. And why someone would choose to do this in between, I don't know. It's done correctly, but I think the town could have saved a lot of money if it was done either in May or in the fall town meeting. So I just wanted to point that out. I didn't get a final figure. Do we know what it actually costs?
So basically, I did talk to all of the different departments to find out what it would cost all the different departments. I did talk to town council as well. So an approximate figure is about $8,500. And then I did speak with Parks and Rec because they are directly impacted. And their figure alone is $5,000. So those two figures together are obviously $13,000. And then we chose not to do our screens, the big screens that we normally have. So we are reducing that figure. Well, we're not reducing that figure. We're keeping that cost down by $2,500. So it would be another $2,500 if we did our actual screens. So you're talking in the terms of $15,000 if we had done the screens as well. So just to have this one single article, it would be in the figure of $15,000. And we were kind of conservative as far as what the printing for the special town meeting report, because we're doing it pretty quickly, a quick turnaround in order to get it into the time frame that we need to get it in. And we kept that cost around $1,800, $2,500 normally for our regular printing. So we kind of brought that figure down to about $1,800. It could be upwards of $2,500. So we're really being conservative. So we're still talking figures that are very, very conservative. So, $13,000. It's a lot of money for one question. And I did ask the petitioner if she was interested in waiting until the fall, and she clearly said no.
Mr. Chairman, in fact, didn't they approach us early enough last winter that they could have been on the spring town meeting?
I think they could have been on the fall town meeting, right?
Or this past spring they could have been on, but intently chose not to, wanted to go this route instead. That's the...
I think it's unfortunate for the town. So if it's okay with this board, I'm going to turn it over to the Park and Rec so they can make a presentation, but you want to come up?
Sure. I apologize for being late. Is it the petitioner was unwilling to present?
Yes.
Excellent. We're here.
I did. You want me?
It's kind of a selfish move. My opinion.
I have my laptop.
I share your opinion.
How you doing?
How are you?
Good.
I have a key, so if you want me
How
to
are you?
disconnect.
Good. Mr. Chairman, if I can, before they get started,
Yeah,
I apologize for being late, but this obviously is a special meeting and it's kind of a cycle meeting, but I would like to put it on, try to find a way with town council, that if somebody's going to bring a petition like this forward, we've had plenty of opportunity to put this article on a standard town meeting warrant, that we look at opportunities to do some sort of a chargeback or something. I have no idea what the laws will allow us to do, but I'd like to be part of a task force or something among us that answers that call, to look into ways to charge back a petitioner if they want to do something like this when they had every opportunity to do it on a regular cycle.
I agree. So you could have been another task force.
I'm happy to take on the role.
Gentlemen, I'll turn it over to you.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, Board, thank you for having us this evening. So, we're just going to briefly go over the articles and kind of line by line how they impact what we see they would face Park and Rec, as well as some of the other town departments here, and go through it if that pleases you. So, petition line 1 says the board and committee with care, custody, and control of the town-owned property, including without limitation any park, playground, public building, schoolhouse, school grounds, or parking lot may rent or allow the use of town-owned property to members of public, individuals, and groups, both profit, nonprofit, and for reasonable uses and at reasonable times. So this is how we currently work. Each of the boards works a little differently. Some people have some different fees associated with how they do that. Different places have different hierarchies. I know at Park and Recreation, we go with the idea of youth sports. Always after Park and Rec, youth sports have precedent, followed by town groups that have at least 80% of residency rate inside of their registrations, and then we kind of fall out after that. That makes sure that people who live in town and utilize the resources that we have here are getting precedent in the town-owned property, town-owned land, things that we do through our particular system. 2, the board or committee with care, custody, and control of the town-owned property will grant priority in rental or use to the town-owned property to nonprofit organizations, and particularly encourage the use of town-owned property by community groups, and particularly these groups which serves the needs of youth in the region. So some of our issues that we have with this particular clause is it establishes a hierarchy that puts nonprofits over all other users. With the nonprofits as well as community groups, it's very vaguely laid out. So do all nonprofits have precedent? What is the residency status of them? Does that mean that a group like the Girl Scouts could come into a room like tonight in 103 and get precedent because they're a nonprofit over the board here who has a meeting to run and attend? What does that language actually mean? How is it interpreted? Focus on age, focus on groups which serve the needs of youth. So this can be perceived as ageist. As you all know, we have a space needs committee. We have the need for a senior center. We have the need for a community center. All of these things that we're up against with very, very little space. So with giving any group priority of the very little space that we have, it could be perceived as an unfair advantage across the board. And then, once again, we have, very limited space here in the town. So regional. It says, youth in the region. So what is that precedent? Do we allow people from out of town to come in and use town-owned, taxpayer-funded property over residents of the town of Littleton just because they pulled a permit first or were first ones to speak to the board or committee that was governing the particular room or park or place that they wanted to be in? 3, the above provisions shall apply to any schoolhouse or school grounds to the extent that the school committee has delegated care, custody, or control to any other town board.
So we all know the school committee has 100% control of their facilities, and I believe Mike Font is in the crowd, and he can speak to some of the school-related stuff when the time comes. And then there has been references made outside of this to the MOU, which is an agreement between the Littleton Public Schools Board of Selectmen and Park and Rec Commission. This agreement is for the use of the indoor space at the schools by PRCE in exchange for PRCE taking care of the athletic fields. Line 4, last line, in the event that a program that is similar to Parks and Recreation and community education events shall not be grounds to deny the use of town-owned property, provided, however, that the rental of any park, playground, public building, schoolhouse, school grounds will not be allowed if directly interferes with student activities, school-related functions, or any park, recreation, and community education offering or events. So this sentence right here is completely contradictory to itself. The very first line, the very first part of the line says shall not be grounds to deny, and then you have a however. If it is one of these events being park, rec, and community education, then it will be allowed to deny it. The other piece to this would be a article to the town's bylaw, and this directly singles out one department being Parks, Recreation, and Community Education. So it's not really it's very non-inclusive as far as being a town governing piece of legislation. This change could have serious consequences on all boards and committees, and it sets a dangerous precedent for the usages of future buildings that may be built, including Elder and Human Services and the Reuben Hoare Library. So, if this is passed by the town, this, opens up the door for anyone to come in and, create any kind of article just to be able to use things as they see fit and not necessarily in the best interest of the town.
Tim, while you're addressing that fourth sentence, what if that is read in a slightly different way?
Okay.
After the however, that the rental of any park playground will not be allowed if it directly interferes with. So if that directly interferes with is read to mean scheduled at the same time as. So, I understand your reading, and I don't know which reading is the right reading.
And I don't think
But I don't think any of us do, and the intent of that, no one's here to speak to the intent of it. But
Right.
let's say that is intended to only mean if there are two programs that are scheduled at the same time. That then does bring in the first portion of that. How would you read that, or how would you understand that any event or program that is similar to any park and rec program will not be, so on and so forth, through the however? How does just that piece match? I'm asking a really, really bad question, and I apologize.
it's okay.
How does the first portion of that fit with current park and rec policies?
Okay. So, currently, like I said, we do have the hierarchy of what we do as far as our programming versus, having people come in and do programming. And I will kind of touch base on that in a minute.
Okay.
I think one of the issues that we run into is, there were some falsities as to the way that Park and Rec in particular was said to have barred people from doing things just because they seemed to be in competition with us. And I can say a lot of it is historical. That's much before my time or Alicia's time. Going
And
back.
if you're going to address that, then,
Yeah.
I don't need to sidetrack you. I
Yeah,
just
and-
wanted to
and I am,
say that
and
there are two ways of interpreting.
To speak to, how we operate now, it really isn't, because we, when we do have groups especially, a good, for instance, is the egg hunt and candy scramble that we've partnered with the Girl Scouts to do that, to help us put that event on. This weekend in particular, we partnered with the PTA to put on the color run. So there's been many instances in the past 2 years since I've been here that we've, partnered with a lot of groups in town to help with the funding and to create events that are much more inclusive with, many more people. Light hands make, many hands make light work, and by putting those groups together. But at no time have we, in my tenure here, done anything that's, dismissive to anyone. So, just a little history. Did you have anything that you wanted to get into?
Well, I would just say, I was disappointed to find out the petitioner was going to be here. There's so many questions I have about what the intent, what the motive of this, this article is. You know, I've been on the commission, I'm starting my third year now. We've never denied anyone anything. We did deny Marcus Lewis to run a tennis clinic through Tiger's Den. That was my first meeting. I remember it quite vividly. I had no prior history I know he had been in there before. I had no prior knowledge of any of those conversations, so I went in with an open mind. But it was clear to me that it was a business opportunity for him that he was looking for, and we already had a tennis instructor that was running well. It was filled, you know, it was attended well. So we asked him to, you know, start a middle school team. He was looking for a feeder program for the high school, so we suggested talking to Mike Lynn about that. That's the only thing we've ever denied in 2 years from anyone. People have come to us for waivers for fees for the parks. We're happy to work with them. You know, we kind of just went through the Long Lake Beach with the neighborhood. We spoke to them. We made a lot of concessions. We were happy to work with the community to get past some of those issues. We would have been happy to work with this petitioner as well to try to figure out what she's trying to achieve here. You know, just reading some of this language, you know, to Chase's, you know, question, it was hard to ask the question because it's tough to understand what she's trying to get at. So, you know, I was disappointed that she isn't here to answer some of these questions, and we can kind of get a clearer picture of, you know, what we're trying to achieve. And, you know, I think it's too late now, but, you know, if she had come to us before, I think, you know, there's a good chance we could have worked with her to figure out a path forward without the need for this. So that's, I think, you know, a lot of the issues that I've heard about as far as Park and Rec denying things, there's the ones that come to my mind are, we asked the library not to run a coding program, which is not true. They successfully ran a coding for girls program, I believe. We stopped running our coding program because it wasn't well attended, so we stopped running it. I believe to this day the library still runs it. Could be wrong on that. There was a parent group that we supposedly denied something to. They wanted an event. That predated Tim, predated Alicia, predated anyone on the board. Actually, Fred's new, so maybe, I know Fred was a commissioner way back when. Perhaps he was around during those times. But, you know, the issues that I've seen out there as to the reasons why we need something like this are ancient history. You know, we are more than happy to work with the community to reach a consensus. You know, we may disagree, we may not be able to get there, but, you know, it would have been nice to at least have the opportunity. So you can take it from here.
So, you know, Mr. Freund, who's sitting behind me, who's one of our park commissioners, who kind of predates everyone, put it very, predates everyone. No problem, Fred. Everyone at Park and Rec.
He remembers when the
everyone at
Baker
Park
House
and
was
Rec
built.
currently- I'm sorry, Fred.
Fred, what year was the Baker House built?
Who predates everyone at Park and Recreation, in one of our conversations had, you know, stated that, you know, a lot of this stuff had taken place when in the beginning of kind of working together and trying to forge some of the relationships, there was a lack of communication between Park and Rec and the library. There was a lack of communication between, at the time, Kate and the PTA, Kate and some of the other parents groups. And it wasn't so much that anybody was being denied certain things, but the communication and the relationships were not yet really forged. Alicia had a conversation with one of the gentlemen who, at the time, was impacted by specifically what's referenced is the egg hunt that was shut down. And we came to find out that that egg hunt was actually supposed to take place at Bumblebee Park, which is a conservation property. Park and Rec had no skin in the game whatsoever. As far as the Halloween thing that's referenced, he was also able to shed some light on that. And the old director had also, in kind of a lack of communication, the request was not to host the event at the same time as Trunk or Treat. So it wasn't to stop it from going on, and because apparently there was, you know, a poor communication, a poor relationship there, that it wasn't really ever talked through. So that's my understanding of both of those situations as they were put forth. Moving forward, Mike referenced a little bit of the history, and, you know, we're going to mention Mr. Lewis. For the petitioners who were out there, I'm sure that they, you know, had seen Mr. Lewis collecting signatures and have spoken to him. There is a website that's up in relation to this, Free Littleton, that you can reference.
So let me just
Yep.
interject. Mr. Lewis, for those of you who don't know, is a businessman. He doesn't live in town. He doesn't pay any taxes in town. So I think that's important to note.
So just kind of the high level, our old director, Lisa Paradis, and Mr. Lewis were working together about 15 years ago, and we don't have any files or documents to see what the actual relationship was as far as the working with Marcus Lewis Tennis. Eventually, kind of our ways parted in the years past. Ms. Paradis has moved to Brookline. Kate Hodges became the director. Other instructors were found to run our tennis program. Sue Adams, who's in the room tonight, has done a phenomenal job for us. She runs programming at our elementary schools, as well as programming with us this summer that we're partnering up with a group to do the Nike tennis camps. During her Ms. Hodges' tenure here, Marcus attempted to get the Park Commission to dissolve the PRCE department and consider allow him to run his department and our operations privately. The Park Commission chair at the time, Mr. Brian Ricker, responded with a resounding support and of the director and the staff. So you can see the little logo there. Under one of the businesses, the Community Recreation Association for Towns is the business under the Marcus Lewis Enterprises that would have been referenced to do such a thing. Ms. Hodges left in 2014. Sharon Martell was interim for most of 2015. When Alicia was hired, Mr. Lewis approached Ms. Day when she first arrived and explained that he had worked for the department years prior and offered to run programming. Ms. Day explained that we already had instructors and provided successful tennis programs year-round. However, that if we needed one in the future, we could reach out. On May 9th, this was the meeting that Mike had referenced, his very first meeting. Basically, we had walked away from that with the understanding that Marcus could, you know, go to the middle school, speak to Mike Glynn, create a feeder program for the middle school tennis. It's well documented in our meeting minutes from May 9th, 2017. On June 1st, Mr. Lewis posted a Time website and threatened to sue the town, freelittleton.com, and what's this all about? His letter was responded to by our town solicitor. Over the course of last summer, no further action was taken to sue the town. However, Mr. Lewis, through Liz Armato, has been attempting to gain 200 signatures at the time, and he has finally succeeded, which brings us here this evening. We have a very fair instructor process. Anyone can come and do any of our programming. Anybody can ask to be an instructor with the town of Littleton through Parks, Recreation, and Community Education. We send out an email. It goes out numerous times during the year. First step is to review the manual and see if your programming fits what we have. If you're able to meet our requirements and start as stated in the manual, then the next step is to complete a course proposal and application. We accept course proposals on times that I'm about to show you. The intent of this application is to collect information required to plan, implement, and run programming with PRCE. And you fill out all the documents. Contact Rachel or John depending on what you're doing. So community education goes through Rachel, sports go through John. Once we approve your course proposal, you submit the W-9, you become an official vendor. The state of Massachusetts has a very strict law on what is a vendor and what is a town employee. It's called the three-prong rule. You can reference that, you can Google it, you can see it, but we follow this to the letter of the law. We complete a query background check. If the person is coming in as a business, they are required to complete query background checks for their employees, and they're required to attend one of the mandatory instructor meetings. Basic guidelines for instructors are they teach a specific activity, they're listed as vendors, and they must submit a W-9 to the town of Littleton. Our community education coordinator works with the instructors to schedule locations, dates, and times here in Littleton. That includes our coordinators working with the schools and other groups to make sure that, you know, space is available. Most of our instructors operate on an 80-20 split, which means that 80% goes to that instructor and 20% comes to the department for really just covering the cost of staffing, electricity, any bills that we might get, and running our recreation software and paying for our administration. Final invoices are due on the last class. Spring and summer 2019 courses open on December 17th of 2018. This is just our most recent kind of bullet points we sent out. These are our sessions that we offer. So like I said, these go out quite a few times every single year. Spring session 1 and 2, summer sessions, fall session, winter session 1 and 2. All of our sessions run for 6 weeks. No one is granted a contract longer than 6 weeks. And at that point, they are required to go back through the entire process. In our vetting process, we do look at things like, has an instructor worked with us before? What is the retention rate of their kids? Do their classes fill up? So in looking at all of this, if we have an extremely successful program, there are times that we will turn someone away and say, we do have a really awesome program. We have, somebody in the town who's running that, or, for whatever reason this is, but we're going to keep you on file. Please feel free to, make a proposal next time. There are times that we run things in parallel. If we do have a program that kind of seems to be slipping off and we want to try something new to see if that is a little better, we could do that. And there's definitely times that, whether through roll enrollment because we've canceled a class the previous session, that we part ways with an instructor that we've used in the past and moved on. So that is my presentation for that. And Mike, did you have anything else to add?
So Tim went over the history of kind of what we've been through with Mr. Lewis. He started the website when we denied him the opportunity to take over our tennis program, which again, we were already running. Threatened to sue the town. He started so that website continued to evolve, Free Littleton. There's a Facebook page associated with that as well that he runs, or I assume he runs. If you look at any of the pictures of people signing the petition, it's Mr. Lewis. If you talk to people who signed it at the town dump, they signed it for Mr. Lewis. He approached them, he signed it. So, the bottom line for me is we have a businessman from outside of town looking to change our bylaws to increase his bottom line. I have a huge problem with that. As a resident more than a commissioner, that's not the way government should work, small town government. Again, if Ms. Aramento came to us, I think we could have worked something out. I don't think she's the driving force behind this. I think it's a person outside of Littleton trying to increase their business opportunities.
Thank you. Open it to the board, questions directed at them if you have any. Then I'm going to let the school committee vote for you. Speak.
Yeah, less a question than a comment. I'm sorry you have to feel that you have to defend yourself so much. I don't think the town at all buys this line, this story, and nonetheless appreciate the level of detail you've gone into. For those that haven't been paying attention, this is, it's kind of a nuisance and a misabuse of, the town government that's available to all of us, but you shouldn't have to bear that burden. Sorry for that, and I hope the town feels as strongly supportive of you. And for that matter, if another department was targeted that's charged with managing the town's property, the library or school department or whoever else, you guys make good judgments about what's right and in the town's interest and use of the town's property, and I'm sure you'll find that the town will rally to your support.
Thanks.
Anyone else wants?
I just still trying to understand this clause here. So, that an event or program that is similar to any Parks and Rec offering or events shall not be grounds to deny the use or rental of any town-owned property. Let's just take that for a second. If I understand you guys correctly, you're saying it's not currently Park and Rec's policy to do that, right? To deny a program because it conflicts with something that Parks and Rec is already putting on. Is that correct?
Absolutely correct.
Okay. And I think right there, that's the fundamental reason why anybody is paying attention to this at all, is that there seems to be some confusion that that might have been in the past Park and Rec's policy.
So the only thing I would kind of add to that is, that, you know, the tennis thing is a prime example. We have an established tennis program. We had someone who runs a business coaching tennis and tennis instruction approach us and ask to add to it or to, I don't know if I think the end game was probably to take it over, but, you know, we had an established program. So we're not going to then allow another business to come in and undercut our instructor that we have a contract with. You know, that's not good for business. We're not going to get good instructors that way. If they sign on to teach or, you know, instruct a program for us, and then, but at the same time, anyone could come along and kind of undercut them and take away their clients. You know, that wouldn't be good business. So, you know, in the sense that if we're already offering something and someone comes along and wants to offer it as well, you know, we're probably not going to allow that because we already have an established program.
But if I understood Tim correctly, what he said was you would work to, you know, either work that in some way, I mean, to the extent that the interest was there.
Yeah, if it's feasible and if we have an overflow and,
So I think a very good example, I mean, if you want to compare apples to apples and, you know, if you would like to reference Sue in the back, one of the things that we did have a little bit of a deficiency in was our ability to run a really good summer tennis program. One of the main things that we really do run is, like I said, we have the 80-20 split. The instructors set their own rates, and as part of that, there are minimums that we need to reach in order to run it. So one of the things that we did entertain this year was one of the proposals that came in was from Kevin Curley and his team at the New England Tennis Association. They submitted a proposal for doing a spring tennis program. They submitted a proposal for doing a Nike tennis camp at Quail Ridge. The history of where this kind of goes back to is 2 years ago at our Massachusetts Park and Recreation meeting, regional meeting. There was a group there from United States Tennis, and specifically there's a program called Net Generation. Net Generation has not done a great job getting themselves off the ground, communicating back and forth, and kind of getting out there, but the product that they're offering, especially to Park and Rec departments, is something that we were really looking for. Kevin was put in contact with us specifically because I had reached out to Kristen Latepo, who is the regional rep for USTA, and asked her, I said, hey, we're not getting anywhere with this Net Generation thing. So with the partnership, you know, Kevin brought Sue on board, actually took her over to his club, brought her on to help, you know, make sure that she was still going to be there to teach our students. All of our registrations go through our registration software, not through their program. So we're still registering the users in-house. And then on top of that, we were able to do 2 Net Generation jamborees here. We did one in April, one in May, where the kids got a free tennis racket, free t-shirt, free sleeve of balls. There were 8 stations at each of them. There's some wonderful pictures on our Facebook page. And then it was completely free. There was not, you know, come to this and then sign up for this. There was the option to sign up if you wanted to, but there was no required commitment to anything else but just show up for the day and come try what we're trying. So, you know, to the point that, you know, we are willing to work with anybody and try anything at least once to see if it's a benefit for the community. You know, we did bring Kevin in, and, you know, I had a very interesting conversation with Sue, and we went back and forth, you know, probably over the course of a week. Oh, this is great. Oh, this is not great. I think I really want to do it my way. Oh, this is really great. So, you know, that was something that we talked about, and, you know, we said, what's best for the town, what's best for the kids? You know, let's give this an opportunity. Let's try this for the spring. Let's try this tennis camp. And in the fall, you know, you're still going to do our indoor programming, you know, if everything is kind of working under the same way, and we'll revisit the situation and see, you know, what the opportunities provided for us in the fall. So, like I said, we take this on a 6-week by 6-week basis, and we look at every opportunity for what's best for the citizens of Littleton and the surrounding residents that use our programming.
So can I ask you another hypothetical then?
Yes.
Just trying to understand this. Let's suppose a program very similar, let's use the egg hunt. Let's say an egg hunt is going on, someone plans an egg hunt at Bumblebee Park, not under the care, custody, and control of Parks and Rec. Parks and Rec, ideal scenario, everybody communicates and we have one much better egg hunt like we have now.
Yep.
Could Parks and Rec stop that program from happening?
No, it's not our property, and nor will we try. I mean, as far as that's concerned, if people,
I think it would be
I
terrible
might-
to have.
I might
spread
make
across, but I
a
wanna
call and say,
understand
hey,
this.
what time are you gonna do yours? Because I'm gonna do mine not at the same time, because we do get a lot of that. And, I personally think it's great that, as a, for instance, like Jamie does her Halloween thing now, Jamboree down at the farm. She does that directly after we do our trunk or treat event, and it's awesome because people can make a whole afternoon out of it. So those things, when people are planning to stay in town, the more things that we can do for people, the better. And I think the color run from this weekend is a really good example. We helped the PTA and Jeanette kind of get some resources together. We had operated races before. They had an unbelievable turnout, far better than any race that we've actually put on ourselves, and it was really, really cool to see.
Not a half bad MC.
And in that, we actually ended up canceling our race on Sunday because we got such low enrollment because everybody had gone to the color run. So, at the detriment of kind of putting on the Tophet Chasm, which, full honesty, we always wanted to try to do it in the fall. So it kind of gave us that opportunity by default, rather than doing it on National Trails Day on June 2nd like we did last year. But it definitely was one of those things, partnering up and working together, we made a really awesome event. We hoped to get a little bit of overflow with people to run on both days, but that just wasn't the case.
That's very clarifying.
Can I just
Thank
make
you.
an add-on comment to that, just to extend the concept, Chase? If, from the school department perspective, if someone approached the school department to say, we'd like to use the high school to run an event, and we look and we say, well, the community's already supporting that particular event, and our buildings are very busy and used a lot, we might very well, exercise our prerogative to say, we're good. We don't think it's necessary, we don't think they're really gonna get a significant benefit from it. So, given the impact that it's gonna have on our ability to keep the school clean or whatever it is, whatever number of reasons we might have, we might say, we think you should talk to this other program and try to find some synergies, and like you just said, have one really good event instead of two Midland events.
Oh, unequivocally.
Right.
Communication
So that's
solves
kind of
all
how
this.
and Tim mentioned, at times, the communication isn't always there, the framework isn't always in place to make sure that that's happening in a judicious and studied manner, but that's what we're striving for. And there may be instances where a particular party comes away unhappy, because they may feel like they weren't treated the way they wanted to be. Well, that may very well be true, but from our perspective as a school department, we think we made the right weighted decision relative to all of the different criteria that we use to evaluate, is it appropriate to open up our facilities, buildings, or fields for those types of events.
Question by the board?
Mr. Chair, if I may. So scheduling of the town-owned property and facilities is booked how far out in advance, on average? If you're planning an event,
So I do all the Park and Rec events on a 6-month cycle, and that's just purely because we do the brochures, fall, winter, spring, summer.
okay,
So right now, I'm booked all the way out through September. In July, I'll book out through, probably we'll go up to Fire and Ice, which is our father-daughter, which is our February event.
okay.
March is typically a lull for us, because we're getting the spring brochure out and trying to get everything up and running for the summer.
Okay. And as far as the youth sports, and just because I just can't remember, does Park and Rec handle the scheduling of the youth sports?
We work with them. So I sat in on the spring meeting before the spring season. We had lacrosse, baseball, and soccer. And we sat down, we hashed out the schedule. So we work with the organizations to schedule it, so.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
I mean, we're not sending them the schedule. We sat in our conference room and we worked it out.
So there's a lot of thought and planning that has to go into that
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
on both, ahead of time, right?
Yep.
And as you already mentioned in your presentation, the scheduling space, we lack space severely in town. What are the rental fees? Are you aware of any, if you're going to use, say you want to rent out, might be able to answer this, the auditorium at the high school, or if we want to rent the multipurpose room, do we have a set fee schedule for that, or?
We have set fee schedules typically for youth sports organizations that use our buildings. We don't charge a rental fee, we cover the custodial costs for having a custodian in the building.
Right.
There are many instances where the custodian would be in the building anyway because there's another event going on. And when that's the case, if it's a private group that's renting the facility, they get charged for the custodian, and the youth athletics don't have to cover it. But different organizations do it different ways. Youth basketball, they used to charge us by the hour, but that was kind of cumbersome because we use so many hours and trying to keep track. So we just negotiated a flat fee that gets renegotiated every year.
Okay.
If it's a private group, I don't know the actual rates, but like your example for the auditorium, there's definitely a rate schedule.
Okay.
And every entity or group that goes to apply to use it gets that. They know what it is and it's consistent.
Right.
Can change over time, obviously, but it's consistent when it's
Okay.
implemented.
I mean, just as the petition as a whole, I'm not really seeing the need here. It's not making up for anything that's lacking in what we're already offering. And I agree with your comments. It's just basically benefiting an outside business owner. It's like a loss leader, I think, in a lot of respects to many other programs that they might offer, just a way to get in to our community without going through the proper channels. So it's unfortunate. I appreciate the work that the Park and Rec does as a whole for our community. So I echo the other sentiments of the board. I'm sorry you have to be put on the spot once again. I feel like your department's been under fire a lot lately, and it's really unfortunate.
Mr. DeCoste? So the fact that the petitioner's not here is disturbing to me. You know, there was an opportunity for this petition to be in a regular cycle, and the petitioner's not here, but Mr. Lewis is here. And you know, he's sitting in the back smirking, making gestures and shaking his head. And I don't appreciate that. I mean, this is something that us taking time out of our lives to govern and make important decisions in the town, and to be faced with this type of thing that is extremely self-serving. I don't appreciate it. And I think it insults our intelligence to have Ms. Aramento do your heavy work for you. And for you to sit in the back row and smirk and shake your head is, I'm disgusted by it, frankly. And I hope that the residents see through this and they feel as though you're insulting their intelligence as well. And I hope they show up and send you a very strong message on the 26th.
Mr. DeCoste, can I interject? Chair, sorry. Mr. Chair. I just wanted to know, I don't know the petitioner, I don't know her husband, but I think it's worthy to note that neither one of them signed the petition.
If I may, I want to turn it over to Mike if you have any,
Really, the only thing I wanted to mention is
I just want
that,
to say for the school committee.
yeah, thank you. That's fine, I'm good here. We have not had a chance to discuss this as a committee at one of our meetings. It is on our agenda for Thursday. So until we have a debate and conceivably entertain a motion to either support or not support the article, typical of what we would do for any articles at town meetings that directly affect our operations, I'm not going to speak pro or con about the article. We'll do that on Thursday. We've invited PRCE to come and you know, give us some information, similar to what they're doing tonight, hopefully not as long. But,
You just have to ask better questions.
but the one thing I would reiterate, and I think I'm not going on a limb of this, is to Tim's point, a lot of the verbiage in the article is pretty self-evident. I was up at the high school 2 Saturdays ago, and we had an AAU baseball tournament going on the baseball field. We had Littleton youth soccer using our grass fields because Corper is offline this season and they, you know, we just said, yes, sure, come and use the high school fields. And we had a dance recital going on in the auditorium. So we make robust use of all our facilities. And that particular, if you look at that one day, which was a very atypical day because it was really busy, but it's recital season. Like every Saturday and Sunday this time of year, there were 2 recitals up there yesterday. There was one in the early afternoon and one in the early evening. So, that's a private group that is making money on it, right? They charge the families for dances. The AU tournament is nonprofit. They're charging fees to play, but they're a nonprofit entity. They're not trying to make a profit, they're just trying to run a program. And then, of course, you had a typical youth, town-supported youth program, which is nonprofit and community-based. So we're covering a lot of bases, a lot of days on a lot of our facilities and fields, and we think it's healthy and worthwhile. But again, there is a balance that has to be struck, because at the end of whatever weekend of activity, we've got to open the building and we've got to send our interscholastic athletes out onto those fields. So trying to strike that balance is sometimes the challenge.
Madam Clerk?
So I just want to say a couple quick things. So many of our seniors that signed the petition came to me after the fact, and a couple of them said, I never signed that petition. So I had to show them that they actually had signed the petition. But I think they were more upset with the fact that they didn't, couple things, didn't understand what they signed, which I kind of, explained to them that, well, if you didn't understand it, you probably shouldn't have signed it. But the other thing that I think was more upsetting to them was the fact that that they didn't read the part that the fact that it was coming to a special town meeting, that they were signing something that was bringing this to a special town meeting outside of our regular annual and special town meeting or special town meeting in the fall. And so they said, when Mr. Marcus Lewis came to them at their Friends meeting, he didn't explain that to them. And so they kind of felt like they were hoodwinked a little bit. And so, they felt that when they signed it, signed it, for a good reason, until they started hearing about everything and things started being explained to them. So, so I know that several of them are here, and they just felt, betrayed. And so I think that perhaps we should kind of hear from some of them as well, because they signed it in good faith. And I think that they didn't really understand what they were actually signing, so.
I will take the opportunity to open it up now to anyone who wants to make a comment. Just state your name and your address before you speak. We'll start in the front row.
Ed Mullen, 10 Grist Mill Road. I know that Mr. DeCoste mentioned putting together a task force or something to look back at, how we can backcharge somebody who works outside of, a regular town meeting, that when they had an opportunity to get on the warrant. Why not send them a bill? Even if it's just out of principle. If they're costing the town $13,000, they should know it, and we should send it out of principle, and now we might get lucky.
Not now, you just said it.
Nancy?
I'm Nancy Levine on Grist Mill Road, and I'm also Vice President of the Friends for the Council on Aging. And I signed the petition. I signed it at the market basket, and there is no way you can read this at the market basket where other people are interested and know what it says. I did it because he spoke very briefly, and I listened to him. I invited him to a Friends meeting because he said no one will listen to him, so I invited him to come, and he did. And he basically explained more, but not like what I'm hearing tonight. There are always two sides to every story. And once we actually saw this, some people didn't know about the special town meeting. Another person swore she never signed it, and of course she did. So I am in a hard place because I'm embarrassed to say I signed it because I didn't read it. And I was paying attention to one side and not the other. I have learned a lesson. I will never sign another petition, even if Barbara McRae asks me to.
Sharon Corbin, 31 Lawrence Street. As Nancy said, Mr. Marcus came to our Friends meeting. He totally sugarcoated this article, totally. He was talking about a tennis camp. That's all he was talking about. And all this verbiage here was not explained to us, was not at all part of the agenda that he met us with. So I too went to Diane and I said, can I withdraw my name from this petition? And unfortunately, I couldn't. So, yes, buyer beware. Read the fine print before you sign anything, and we are so to blame for this ourselves.
Anyone else? Sorry, Carol, didn't see it.
I recognize we have a quorum, but we're not in session, so it's a question only to the board there. My understanding is this town meeting, school committee sets policy for use of our facilities that cannot be set by a town meeting vote. I just want to have that confirmed, because in effect, this has no effect on the school committee, because town meeting cannot set school committee policy. So I'd like to make sure that that was confirmed.
I'd be glad to take that
Sure.
if you'd like.
Yeah,
I would just say that the board and I have reviewed the statutes relating to school committee and its authority, and we agree essentially. I don't think anyone disagrees.
Okay, thank you.
any others? There's no discussion, I'd probably look for a motion to open up the town meeting.
So this is exactly where, if the petitioner were here and they knew that this would have no bearing on school property, then at this point, if the petitioner were here, I'd ask her if she would be willing to withdraw it, because this is, it's kind of, it's a moot point. We're spending $13,000
Right.
for no result, other than an inconvenience to the town. So I appreciate putting forward this petition, Mr. Lewis. That's sarcasm.
Mr. Chair, if I could just kind of point out one of the things I meant to say when Chase was kind of fumbling through this. I think one of the things that we have to work through.
Appreciate that.
We all fumbled through it.
At least I'm not super old, I guess.
We all fumbled through this and trying to struggle to, what the understanding was to each and every single one of us. And, I think one of the things moving forward to consider and looking at this particular article and any article that's brought to the town is that, the verbiage has to be something that's very clear and concise and, isn't up for interpretation for somebody, especially coming after any of us. Because all they're gonna do is look back and say, what was this supposed to mean? And I think, to Chase's point, Chase reads it completely different than I might read it, than Mike might read it, that anybody in this room might read it, to the point that was just brought up. So I think that that's something that's very important with this article and in specific, that there is no clarity. There's no, specifically laid out hierarchy of, who is able to use it, what is the fee structures, how should the boards, ask for assigned rental agreement, things like that, moving forward.
Look for a motion then?
You looking for the motion to open the warrant?
Yes, please.
You want me to?
Oh, you're clerk, might as well.
I'd move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to MGL Chapter 39, Section 10, and Town Code Section 41-1 to open the warrant for Wednesday, June 26, 2019 special town meeting forthwith, and to close said warrant on June 3, 2019 at midnight, and to direct that the constable post said warrant forthwith, said town meeting to be held in the Charles Forbes K Gymnasium, Littleton Middle School, 55 Russell Street, Littleton.
Second.
Motion's been made by Chase, seconded by Chuck. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, and I will need a motion to put the article on the town warrant.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to insert Article 1 onto the warrant for the June 26, 2019 special town meeting, subject to approval as to form by town council.
Second.
During the discussion for this, for a moment, and I'm sorry I didn't pick up on this or look at this more closely prior, the sentence about subject to approval as to form by town council, I assume council is going to be discussing this, reviewing this as to the submission by signatures and not by its legality. Are we asking town council, I assume, not to look at this from a standpoint of legality, correct?
I would presume.
I mean, the way-
It stands on its
Sorry
own
to throw a
merits.
monkey wrench in this here.
It stands on its own merits. We're not,
But certainly, we've had town council provide his legal opinion on other citizen petitions, here's what this would do or wouldn't do.
And he did that in this, right?
I'm not sure that we would
Available.
need him to here, but it's within the realm of
Is
possibility.
this sentence necessary?
It's
in
standard
this
language that we
portion of
use at
sentence?
every town meeting, that the town council always reviews the warrant. I think that's what it's saying.
For
just
our own warrants.
For our
not
own
citizens.
warrants, to
Right.
make sure that the warrant's in compliance with the town, for the town clerk. It's not necessarily saying it's, looking at that particular article, but the warrant. and-
But the warrant itself, the form of the warrant itself
Form
is
of the
correct.
warrant, yeah.
No, it's specifically the article.
In other words, at the very top of the warrant, it's stating that it's going out and gonna be posted in 8 meeting houses and all of that. So that's basically what this,
Well, this one is not. That was the first motion we made. This one is as to form is relative to.
but it's the form of the actual warrant, which
Yeah.
includes that part of it as well.
Right.
I just wonder if it's
It's the form of the
harmless to
warrant
drop
itself.
that section.
You can drop it. It doesn't hurt.
By the same token, we've been using that language consistently for years, and it's passed muster with the Attorney General's office, et cetera, so I don't know what harm it's doing.
I don't see a harm, I just want to make sure that we're not suggesting that town council is somehow blessing the article as written in any way.
I'd like to amend the motion to read subject to approval as to the form of the warrant by town council.
And I'm probably being overly cautious.
But I think that amendment would clarify that town council is looking at the form of the warrant, not the form of the
Or
article.
subject to approval of the
Sure.
warrant.
Subject to approval of the warrant as to form by town council. That's it.
So what? Say that again.
Subject to approval of the warrant as to form by town council.
So the whole warrant, not specifically the article.
What he's saying, but he's already saying that the article, to insert Article 1
Onto the warrant.
onto the warrant.
And we are then clarifying that the form is referring to the form of the warrant, not to the form of the article.
See, I read it, just like we just mentioned a minute ago, I read that differently. I read that as to form is specifically relative to the article, as I think you were referring to.
I mean, my only suggestion would be to just move the subject to approval as to form by town council.
To remove it?
Just remove that aspect. Again, very overly cautious, hearing the sentiment of the concerns of the board, but
Not even know that there's any caution here, it's not really necessary.
Well, we've already had lawsuit against us from,
On that basis?
no, but from the individual who's behind the warrant article.
Well, I think the form, even if it applies to the article, was the article written correctly? It doesn't matter whether it's legal or not. We had that dispute just at the most recent town meeting with 2 or 3 citizens petitions that were all, they were all,
Exactly the same way.
yeah, they were all written to form. They also didn't have any legal impact. So, I don't
fair
know.
point.
I think this language was drafted by council, was it, or it's the form that council is?
It's the same that we used, like you said, in the last
For-
warrant, and it's exactly the same that Keats used for.
For every even citizen petitions.
Yeah.
citizens'
100%.
petition.
We just had 3 of them, yeah.
Right, but
The
did we use
same-
that exact same,
The same motion would have been in there, Chuck, when you added that article, and when we listed all the articles, we said 1, 3, 6, 7, as to form by town council, so it's exactly, in theory, the same.
Right, so
It's just one specific one, this one article, which is dealing with
Onto
this,
the warrant.
but
we'll keep the motion as written in.
Well, it's up to
it's been amended
the,
a second.
Yeah, let me withdraw that because we've amended it so many times. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to insert Article 1 onto the warrant for the June 26, 2019 special town meeting, subject to approval as to form by town council.
Second.
Sorry. Okay, the motion's made by Selectman Gerbeck, it's seconded by Selectman Cindy Napoli. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
No.
All those opposed?
No.
4-1. Okay, now a discussion on whether we support or not.
Is there any need for that?
I do not.
Yeah.
I don't think I need to say anything more, I do not.
Do we need a motion to do
Oh,
that?
oh, sure, we need a motion. I just, I've stated my piece earlier. I appreciate all the level of detail people have gone into it and the incisive questioning, but, I think this is pretty, transparent in what this is all about, and I don't think it's in the town's interest.
Right.
Right.
And I would move that the Board of Selectmen vote to not support Article 1 in the June 26, 2019 special town meeting warrant.
Second.
Motion's been made by Selectman Gerbic, supported, seconded by Selectman DeCoste. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, one last thing, just, we have to get the signature on the town warrant, so
On this, we can do after.
Sure.
Second. He moved to adjourn.
A motion to
I
adjourn by,
seconded.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.